Russia faces heavy losses on the battlefield and in the financial markets. The Kremlin's enablers on state TV are increasingly saying the quiet part out loud. A new report in the Daily Beast examines how Russia is airing its ultimate revenge plan for America. Battered and infuriated by sanctions over the war in Ukraine, Putin's henchmen are plotting payback. The author of that piece, columnist at the Daily Beast, Julia Davis, joins us now. She monitors and analyzes Russian state TV. And Julia, what's the focus of this new propaganda?
Hey, Micah, the focus of this new propaganda is, again, to sow discord in our politics. And certainly Trump is helping that to happen. And they want Trump world to know that they're on their side. There's also Tucker Carlson that is promoting the same agenda. They're essentially trying to tap in not only into Trump and his potential presidential run, but his entire base and the entire audience of Fox News that is following Tucker Carlson. So they have a very large agenda. Putin sees lack of unity as the biggest weakness, and this is what he's trying to impose upon our country, is to divide us to the maximum extent. In my report, I'm quoting them, and it sounds like they're speaking and reading directly out of the Mueller report when they're talking about exploiting any divisions and widening any cracks in our society.
So, Julie, let's talk about the reporting of the war. You know, even in the opening stages of the war, you had people on Russian TV talking about using nuclear weapons against Ukraine and possibly against NATO countries. And it seems every night the language becomes more hyperbolic. Where do they get their marching orders from to be basically not just threatening World War III, but at times seemingly cheering it on?
Well, nothing happens on Kremlin-controlled state TV without Putin's approval, whether it's openly or tacitly done. So when his propagandists are teasing the prospect of an escalation to the potential nuclear war, all they're doing is warning the West to stay away. They had figured that this is a good deterrent for us not to get any more involved than we already are. So every time that they're threatened by additional prospects of increased military help to Ukraine, they raise the possibility of a nuclear strike simply to deter the West from doing more.
So, Julia, good morning. It's Jonathan Lemire. We heard from Vladimir Putin today. He made an appearance and talked about the necessity of this war, saying that Russia didn't have a choice, that it was forced to go into Ukraine. And that's, of course, similar to the lines you're hearing from Russian state media. And we have seen a real sharp uptick in his approval rating, somewhat legitimate polls, at least, that have him north of 70, 80% or so. Your sense of it, though, as someone who knows the country so well, how long is that sustainable? If this war does go on for months and months or a year or more on the Eastern Front there on the Donbass, will the Russian people continue to be gripped with this sort of patriotic spirit, or will they eventually grow dissatisfied with what's happening and the economic toll these sanctions are taking on their lives?
Well, Jonathan, initially they had portrayed this conquest of Ukraine as something that could be very easily accomplished. In fact, they have described it as potentially taking no more than 11 minutes, jokingly, but they expected it to take maybe 5 days at most. Now they're assuming a completely different posture, and they're actually predicting that it might take as much as 30, 40 years to fully subdue Ukraine because of the sentiments that are clearly not welcoming Putin, as he had predicted that it would happen. So the state media is trying to consolidate the population and support this war. They're actually dragging out some writings of writers from the beginning of the centuries and claiming that Ukraine has to be part of Russia, whether it wants to or not, that this is simply a reality that everyone needs to accept. And Russians, if they're patriots, will accept it and go along with it for as long as it takes and whatever it takes. At the same time, they're already starting to raise the point that the main objective was the so-called liberation of Donbass, which of course will eventually end in the annexation of eastern Ukraine if they were successful. So that is still a possibility. If Russia sustains massive losses there, if Ukraine holds them back, it might end in that region. But if they manage to succeed, they might continue moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Julia Davis. Greatly appreciate it. You know, Mika, what's so interesting is we're talking again about approval ratings. We're talking about those higher approval ratings. You just don't really know because, again, it's a totalitarian state. People fear for their lives. People fear speaking out. But it is very interesting when we start talking about Russian TV. It is very interesting that, again, you have older Russians who depend much more on television than do younger Russians. And those older Russians actually grew up in the Soviet Union. They grew up with Ukraine being part of the Soviet Union, being part of Greater Russia, like Vladimir Putin. Some of these older Russians, of course, grew up with a history, understanding the history of Kyiv and Odessa being capitals of Tsarist Russia as well. So we look at this, and if we're trying to understand what's going on Russian television, trying to understand why some of the older Russians may actually be supportive of Vladimir Putin, obviously so much of it has to do with their own life experiences.
That's right. And
of course, the world they knew and that they were indoctrinated into being shattered from 1989 to 1991.
There's also thousands of Russians who are leaving and who are leaving for a reason.
Right.
And those are people with access to information that comes from outside Russia and access to a reality that they can embrace, unlike those who have been in Russia for much longer and perhaps don't have the ability to see things beyond the borders. Still ahead on Morning Joe, Clint Watts is going to join us at the top of the hour. 9 a.m. Eastern, he's going to be at the big board with the latest on the troop movements. Also ahead this hour, inflation has already hit a 40-year high, and it's expected to get worse. We're going to have the new numbers when they cross from the Labor Department. Plus, NBC's Blaine Alexander joins us live from Georgia with a look at one of the nation's most closely watched races for governor. But with less than 2 months until the primary, the state's most populous county still has no permanent official in place to lead the elections. Blaine will explain why. And some exciting news before we go to break. You can now stream Morning Joe and other MSNBC shows on Peacock. You can find us on the new MSNBC Hub. Head over to peacocktv.com to learn more.
This is exciting.
You are watching Morning Joe.
It's not just
We'll be right back.
It's really Peacock. It's just not from a grouper anymore. This is great.